there a Felicity in the house?
She's on that side. Halfway back over there.
Hey Felicity, can you come up here?
She's part of the street.
So first of all, it strikes me that being from, not from here, not from this place, that how appropriate is the welcoming that we've received. This is a sort of welcoming that people who have lived here for thousands of years give to people from far away. You've fed us, you've housed us, you've made sure that we're taken care of, that our needs are met. So on behalf of all the attendees of the symposium, I'd like to thank the town of Cobalt and all of our hosts. So thank you very much. And Felicity, you are a great leader. You are a strong leader, you are an important leader, and we would like to say thank you on behalf of the National Steering Committee. It ain't much, but it's pretty. And it'll fit into your car. I know you're still working for another few days on this. But thank you so much. You have been, Felicity has done all of this. She has put this whole thing together, and she has been indefatigable, that's a good word, and resilient, and just really easy to deal with, and always really friendly, and always chipper, and not chipper, that's not the right word. Really sincerely, genuinely wanting to help and make us feel good. And that set the tone, set the vibe for the entire thing. So thank you.
Some of you have heard the story already, but very quickly, in my role at Heritage, I had the opportunity to do a driving trip through Northeast Ontario. It was in November. It was in 2009, maybe 2010. Because we had very few organizations that we were partnering with and supporting here. And one of the individuals that I met was Felicity. And I met her near the street in the bookstore. And she was talking about what was happening with Pied Piper Kid shows at that time. They had a series that had been going for more than 25 years. They had 4 shows. They had good audiences. I made the mistake of saying, so if you could do anything else, perhaps with our support, what would you like to do? And she said, I don't know. And so the conversation ended very, very nicely, and off I went to meet someone else in another town. And 3 months later, I got a call from Felicity, and she's like, I can't sleep at night. More calls. And so the fact that the symposium came to Cobalt, and that we've had the experience that we've had, really, Felicity, you are so strong, and you are so humble, and I just find you a really remarkable person. So, last summer, I was doing a driving trip around the Northeast, and I ended up on Manitoulin, and I've always wanted to visit the Debajehmuijig Theatre Creation Center and see what it's all about, because I've heard so much about it. I've seen them perform. The day that I had my family with me, and we drove over, it was pouring rain, and it was just like the worst day ever. So we ended up not being able to visit. But then a couple months later, I was contacted by a fellow who had a dream for starting a new multidisciplinary arts festival on the island. and his name is Jason Manitowoc, or it's Jason Manitowoc, and he's working at Debaj, and he's like, oh, fantastic. And so we started this dialogue, and then the opportunity for Debaj to come here was like, yes, that's really a good idea. Debaj is a very unique entity. It was founded in 1984, and it was brought together by a group of individuals on the island who were really interested in creating some sort of a creation center that could support storytelling and create stories that were not being told at that time. And they remain the one and only theater center, creation center, that is based on an unceded reserve. So it's really fantastic to have the folks here from Debajehmuijig to tell their story, to share with you some ideas, because of course it's in a rural setting, and this could be a story about reconciliation, but it's not. This is about creation, this is about production, this is about how to survive against the odds when you're not in a big urban center. So without any further ado, please welcome the folks from Debajehmuijig.
Hello, everybody. Boy, that's pretty nice and loud. Yeah, no, there we go, that's better.
Morning. My name is Bruce Debajehmuijig, the newly appointed artistic director for Debajehmuijig. Thank you. I've been with Debajehmuijig ever since I was a young lad, 11 years old. But let's get everybody else introed here.
Hi everybody, I'm Samantha Brown. I've been working for Debaj for about 5 years now. I'm originally from Niagara, but I spent some time at the Creation Center volunteering, and I tried to leave and they wouldn't let me, so I'm still there.
Good morning everybody, my name is Ashley Manitowoc. I started at Debaj as a volunteer at 9 years old, and I'm one of the professional community animators at Debaj.
Good morning, my name is David O'Sullivan. I've been with Debaj off and on since 1989. I started out thinking the room and then ended up getting into stage management. And now I'm doing stage management, a whole bunch of other stuff, and I also do traditional teachings.
So we're just going to give a little idea about how Debajehmuijig has come to be, and a little bit of what we do, what we build our creations on, based on culturally specific territory of the Anishinaabe of Manitoulin Island. So Debajehmuijig started off in Chiging, which used to be called West Bay. The island is actually getting back its traditional names. So from West Bay to Chiging. So we started off in a really small trailer. The idea was to get the youth up on stage so that they can see their own selves and their own stories for those who wanted to be in the arts, those who wanted to see themselves on stage. So for many, many years, like 3 or 4, they were working out of this little trailer. And it was small at the time. And as it started to grow, they couldn't house it in this little trailer anymore because they were starting to get a lot of students in and a lot of actors, and the trailer is like the stage here. So to try and work on that. So they moved to Wikwemikong into another trailer. But just next door, the community let us use the old nursery school, and that was good for our little theater at the time. And from then on, just growing, because Debajehmuijig was starting to use stories from the past, use stories from their cultural history, and bring those into the light, into the stories for audiences. And so from this little nursery school, we then got condemned. We had all of our costumes in there, all of our props, but it was a good building for us at the time, but it got condemned. And we were sitting right in there one day, and the bulldozers just started pushing it over, and we're like, hey, we're still here, right? And so we grabbed all of our stuff out as fast as we can. Since then, we were kind of homeless. We still had our main office in Wikwemcong with all the administration stuff in there, but we had no home to house our practice, our rehearsals, all of our workings and stuff like that. So that was one of our major issues. And so we were working in basements, Audrey's basements, working in the church basements, any space that we could get that would allow us to have rehearsals, workshops, and the like, conferences and stuff, sort of. Throughout those years, it was for sure that we needed a house, and it was our last artistic producer, Ron Bird, who went on the campaign of getting us a building for our theater. We were growing at the same time. We asked the band if we could have a place. They didn't have a place, and they just condemned us one. They did let us share with another group inside of a building, but the dynamic of the building was a little bit too ruckus because they had their business. And if you're downstairs working on a sound piece with your speakers going, you're interrupting their work, right? So that was kind of an odd fit. And so it was the big campaign to go on the big building fund, what was it called? Capital funding campaign. And so like in 5 to 7 years, we finally accumulated all the dollars, and it was a friend of ours, Rainey Maston, who offered his building, which used to be the Rainey Maston's grocery store. And it was a building that was on its way out. It was not doing swell as a grocery store anymore, and it was just a building doing nothing. So he donated it to us for $1, knowing that we wanted to have a place to build our theater, so he donated that to us for $1. But later on, legally, we had to buy it more for that, more than $1. And then again, it was like another 6 years of campaigning and more budgets and building this brand new creation center. And of course, we started off in a shell, no drywall, no lighting grid, just rooms, which was good enough for us because that's what we needed, space for us just to work in those areas. For the music guys to work in their music stuff, for the actors to rehearse, the wardrobe folks being able to make all those costumes, so it was that open space. And over time, we finally got our grid, we finally got our lighting, we finally got all of those things that a theater space needs to have. And up so this day, we have now a brand new recording studio in the theater space. Our black box studio is going to be getting some brand new lights. I don't know if you know the traditional lights. You got to go all the way up to the grid, take your gel with you, right? And go up there and change, right? So every time you want to change your lights, it's a good old traditional work. So we're looking at to get the new fancy, just red. Give me red. So I'm trying to keep moving on up in the world to help better and create a better space. And so now we have a really good facility that we want to use as much as we can. And so we're also spreading the word out there as much as we can. It's like, come and share your stories with us in our studio space. And throughout, so far we have a number of pillar activities that we do throughout the year. And of course, come and tell us your stories, come and use our stage. So we like to say it's a place of convergence. So far we've had a number of conferences there. Tours, people were, one of the funny things is one of the main corridors is Highway 17. Well, we're an hour away from that corridor, major corridor going west to east. So it's like, hey, you're only an hour away, why don't you come in and stop in at the Debajehmuijig and give us your show? And a few people have done that. Just know we're on the map and we're right there. So that's kind of the history of all of that, just physical building and physical living as a theater, especially in Manitoulin Island. So once again, there was no theater, there was no place to house theater. So one of our major venues was an old day school, not a residential school. They did have residencies there, but you didn't have to stay there your whole life and lose everything that you had. You're allowed to go home. So that building burnt down in 1953. So with no theater space before we had our brand new building, we asked the church if we could use that for our main venue in the summers. So it's just almost the size of this room, big brick buildings, a big empty square box of rock with nice big fancy windows. So that became our venue, and it's almost kind of become a staple. And recently we walked away from there because we have our new creation studio. But then the people of Okunakong was like, why did you abandon the ruins? And we're like, oh, okay, well, we better go back in there. And so we did. And the audiences missed it. And so we still use that venue as much as possible. We call it our main stage from now on, right? Even though we have our creation center stage, but that is our major pull-in, and we usually do it on the Paul weekend, our shows, so that there's oondos and oondos of money coming in. Right? Tourist season, grabbing by the tourists. So we've come a long way with a lot of struggles and a lot of great outcomes, and this building is one of them. So as we started to move forward, we got into, like I said, Shirley Chichu wanted those young voices to come up on stage and tell their stories. As we were doing that, we also went back and we found our traditional elders who would wanted to share with us. And one of those elders was traditionalist Eddie King, who has passed on now. And he was a traditional knowledge keeper, and with that, he gave us all of his knowledge. He shared with us a couple of times, and of course, one of our staples is sending our students off to learn this stuff. Right, so that's one of the major things for Debajehmuijig is looking back in our cultural history, looking back to the stories, looking back to traditional understanding. So when we create, we have those foundations in mind. So I'm going to introduce, I'm not going to introduce Sonny O, I'm going to give the mic over to Sonny O. And David, David is his original name, his human name is Sonny O. So we reflect on a lot of our oral history, we reflect on a lot of our cultural past as a stepping stone to move forward into a lot of our creations. And we do say creations a lot because we make our shows from scratch. A lot of the time, of course, we still do accept scripts. And if there's a show coming in, why not have that also? But mainly for Debajehmuijig, we use a lot of our own personal resources, our own territory, our own cultural knowledge to help us reflect what those meanings are, what those lessons are, what the outcomes of those stories are, to help us get meanings out into our audiences today, how to look at our world from a cultural lens. And I'll let Sonny O take it right from there, because then there's a lot more to talk about after that. Everybody, Sonny O. David, sorry. Sure, yep.
Rest. Get some rest. I'm Bojo, on behalf of the Adalo Nabewan and on behalf of the Debajehmuijig Theater Group. It is a great honor and a great privilege for me to be here with you people and share just a little bit of our oral history, a little bit of our customs and traditions. Is that this time, though, unfortunately, and I apologize to all those who are out there that I request that there be no videotaping. You can take still photos, that's fine, but we request that there be no videotaping or